The night changed everything in a single, terrifying second. When Daniel Carter pulled back the bedsheet and saw dark red stains spread across the fabric, his heart slammed so hard it felt like it might tear through his chest. His breath vanished, his hands began to shake, and for a moment the entire world tilted under his feet as fear took over his mind. As a single father who had already lost too much, the sight of blood was not just alarming, it was paralyzing, dragging every buried memory and every silent fear back to the surface at once. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of human love, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need it, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this alive. Daniel had never planned for his life to turn out this way. Years ago, he had been a man with ordinary dreams, a stable job, a small house, laughter filling the rooms. But fate rewrote his story when his wife passed away after a long illness, leaving him alone with their young daughter, Emily. From that day forward, Daniel became both mother and father, strength and softness, even when he felt like he was breaking inside. He learned how to braid hair with clumsy fingers, how to pack lunches, how to smile through exhaustion, and how to cry silently late at night when the house finally fell asleep. Every day was a quiet battle between responsibility and grief, and yet he never once considered giving up. Emily grew into a gentle, thoughtful teenager far too quickly, carrying a maturity that came from watching her father struggle yet never abandon her. Daniel noticed the changes recently, how she seemed more tired, how she withdrew into herself, how her smiles were thinner than before. He told himself it was just adolescence, just another stage he needed to learn how to navigate. But deep down, a sense of unease lingered, like a storm waiting beyond the horizon. That night, Daniel had gone into Emily's room to wake her for school after she hadn't come down for breakfast. The room was quiet, the curtains barely letting in the pale morning light. When he saw her lying still, his heart tightened. And then he saw the sheets. Blood, unmistakable and terrifying. His mind raced to the worst possibilities: injury, illness, something he had failed to notice. Panic surged through him as guilt crashed in right behind it. He felt like he had failed her in the one role that mattered most, protecting his child. As he stood frozen, memories flooded back of hospital rooms, beeping machines, and the helplessness he had felt watching his wife fade away. He couldn't lose Emily too. He couldn't survive that kind of pain again. His hands trembled as he reached out, his thoughts spiraling faster than he could control. And then, just as the fear threatened to consume him completely, he heard her faint, shaky whisper. It wasn't a cry of pain or fear. It was calm, almost embarrassed, carrying a softness that immediately cut through the chaos in his mind. In that fragile moment, Daniel realized the truth he had been too overwhelmed to see. Emily was waking into womanhood, frightened and unsure, and needed understanding, not panic. The blood on the sheets was not a sign of tragedy, but of change. And in that realization, something inside Daniel shifted. Relief washed over him so powerfully that he had to sit down to steady himself. The fear drained away, replaced by a deep, aching tenderness. He saw not just his little girl, but a young woman standing at the edge of a new chapter, needing guidance, reassurance, and unconditional love. Daniel felt the weight of all the moments he had doubted himself as a father, all the nights he worried he wasn't enough. And yet, here he was, still standing, still learning. He spent that morning taking care of Emily in the quiet ways that mattered, making her tea, finding the supplies she needed, giving her space while letting her know he was there. He didn't have all the answers, but he had patience. He didn't have perfection, but he had presence. And for the first time in a long while, Daniel understood that being a good parent wasn't about never being afraid. It was about staying, even when fear tried to drive you away. As days passed, their bond deepened in subtle, beautiful ways. Emily began to talk more, sharing her worries about growing up, about school, about life without her mother. Daniel listened, not as a man trying to fix everything, but as a father willing to learn. He shared his own fears too, admitting that he didn't always know what he was doing, but that loving her had always been the one thing he never questioned. In those moments, healing quietly took root. Life didn't suddenly become easy. Bills still piled up, exhaustion still lingered, and loneliness still crept in during the quiet hours. But something had changed. Daniel no longer saw himself as a man barely holding things together. He saw himself as someone capable of rising, again and again, for the sake of the person who needed him most. Emily, in turn, walked a little taller, knowing she wasn't facing the world alone. As the years moved forward, Daniel would often think back to that morning, the blood on the sheets, the panic, the whisper that changed everything. What he once thought was the beginning of another loss had actually been the beginning of deeper understanding. It reminded him that not every frightening moment ends in tragedy. Sometimes, fear is just a doorway to growth. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of your own struggles, your own parents, or your own quiet victories, please take a moment now to like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement means more than you know, and it helps stories like this reach others who might need hope. And before the ending, tell us in the comments, who is the one person in your life that you would face your greatest fear for? Daniel's story is not extraordinary because of what he endured, but because of how he stayed. In a world that often runs from vulnerability, he stood still and listened. And in that simple act, he found strength, healing, and a love deeper than fear.